Hi, my name's Mark and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm joined by somebody who's brand new here. He's pretty much brand new to the world. This is Frederic, and he is the younger brother of Mabel. He comes from the same parents, and so in both senses he is her little brother, and we're very excited that he's here. I'm sure we'll tell you way more about Frederic and share lots more of him as time goes on. In other news, I'm feeling wildly distracted, hurt, sad, overwhelmed by all sorts of things going on in the world and just seeing so many people hurt. I've always been emotional. I've always felt, and it's always been a challenge to exist in a world that is dark and full of lots of evils and injustice in all different directions. So I'm here for a little sit down with you because I don't want to feel like I'm abandoning anyone. I know there are lovely, wonderful people who love to come on a Saturday morning and relax, get away from things, work on a project, spend time together. So that's what we're here for. I'm going to show you some of my projects on the needles. We're going to sit, we'll look at Frederic, get to know him a bit, and we'll be together. So thanks for being here. If you're interested in any of that, stick around and let's get into it. I know not everyone who watches this channel is the biggest animal person, so I won't make this all about Frederic today, but I will tell you his story. Frederic just came home yesterday. I just met him yesterday, and you can see Mabel in the back. Mabel is thrilled. Mabel loves every dog she's ever met. Mabel loves people. Mabel loves cats. Mabel is a lover, and Mabel is a wonderful dog. And so when we heard about Frederic and knew that he was coming from the same parents as Mabel, he would be a real blood little brother, and he was also described as having the same temperament as Mabel when she was a baby. Look at him. He's precious. So our hope is that they will be wonderful companions. Mabel is smart. She's really active. Sometimes we feel like we can't quite keep up with her or engage her as much as she needs. She gets a lot of that from the cats. We like to take her on adventures. She has a wonderful network of people who adore her and like to entertain her, but we thought this might be a nice addition to our lives. So we've got Frederic here, and I'll cut to a little bit of the footage. Frederic has done an amazing job in his first day. He's been very brave. He's been very sweet. He's acclimated well to the parts of our house that we've shown him, and Mabel has been an excellent sister. She is his shepherd. She's enjoyed teaching him everything from where the water bowls are to the games she likes to play, and even how we like to cuddle together. So I think it's the start of a very nice adventure. Right, little boy? So for any of you who enjoy the animals here in our household, hopefully you're enjoying this little introduction to Frederic. And for those of you who are over it, let me get my projects out and we'll talk a little bit about yarn. If you're the kind of person who watches most all of my videos, you'll know that I have a lot of projects on the needles and I haven't finished anything in months. It's kind of an out of control situation where I keep working on all of these projects, yet nothing has been completed for various reasons. So I'm pulling out my Sparkle Along project, and I am nearly to the end of my first cone or disc of sequin yarn. So let me get this out and we'll talk about project number one. All right, first up, I've got a good portion of my Sophie Hood complete. It's almost half of it. I'm in the hood part now. When I first showed this to you, I had only done the tiny bit of the tail to test to see if using the sequin runner just for the center, the garter portion of the Sophie scarf, would make sense. And at that time I was working on truly a Sophie scarf. I changed course after I started working on it and I enjoyed how it was looking to now make a Sophie Hood. I wanted more of it, and I thought out in the dark winter days, sort of gray sky winter, this bright blue with the sequins would be really special, and it would make me happy, it would cheer me up, which is the point of a sparkle along to begin with. So I've got quite a bit of it here. I'm really happy with how it's going. My sparkle is tangled. That's okay. I've done my best to keep it corralled throughout the process. And if you remember when I showed my options for working with sequin runners, I only had one skein of this, and it was out of stock at my local yarn shop around the Table Yarns in Shaker Heights, Ohio. So I really only had one. I went back and double checked. They didn't have any more in stock. Fortunately, I was able to purchase a couple more cones from a seller on Etsy. Sometimes if I'm running out of yarn and it's not in stock at the local yarn shop where I purchased it, or I can't find it online from any major yarn stores, I'll go to Ravelry, I'll go to eBay, I'll go to Etsy, and I'll start looking to see if someone has a spare skein or two or three, whatever's needed to finish a project that I've already started. So fortunately, I found what I needed to get me through the hood and down the other half of this project. And for a moment, let's just look at the sparkle. I'm thrilled with the amount of sparkle going on here. I think it's almost too much. I don't want more than what we've got going on. I played with the idea of just using the sequin runner every third row, something like that, where I'm not using it back and forth in every row, right side and wrong side. But I felt at the beginning like the sequin we were getting was so discreet, and it is still pretty discreet. I felt like it made sense to just use it in every row. So when I stand back and look at it under better lighting or in natural light during the daytime, it looks beautiful and sufficiently sparkly for my taste. So that's about half of my Sparkalong project. I've enjoyed working on it. It's making me happy. It's cheering me up. It's doing its job. And if you're just tuning in and you didn't see my earlier sparkle videos, I'm leading a make-along currently where the goal is for everyone to use some sort of sparkle or shimmer or shine in a project, mostly to cheer us up, to brighten dark winter days, and to make something that maybe not everybody would be comfortable wearing. Maybe something they don't already have. There are plenty of people participating who have shared previous sparkle, glittery, beaded, jeweled projects that I think are really fabulous. But there are also a lot of people who've come to this make-along who have said, I'm not really the kind of person that would wear something sparkly or glittery. It's a little too much, a little too loud. It's going to draw too much attention. And I really appreciate that so many are taking a risk and pushing themselves to wear something, make something, add something to their wardrobe that might be a little out of their comfort zone. So that's the story there. And now for another project in progress. This is a sweater that I started 2 or 3 days ago, and it's a sweater ideally meant for my husband, Ned. I purchased the yarn, I purchased the main color, and then I'm using stash for all of the contrast colors of this kind of light colorwork sweater pattern here on screen. And I was really excited to start this maybe a month ago before one of my December trips. And I purchased the pattern, I purchased the main color for the sweater, picked my contrast colors. Ned actually picked them. So we came into the craft room. I pulled down all of my scraps of Scout from Kelborn Woolens, and he picked what he wanted for the contrasts. I wound off as much as I would need and packed it all up in a little packing cube, put it in my suitcase, and took it on one of my early December trips, with the goal being to finish my cabled cardigan, which we'll look at in a minute, and perhaps this sweater, and have it be a Christmas gift or a Christmas sweater for Ned this year. And it was one of those situations where I saw the sample in my local yarn shop, so I could really envision what it would be like if I were to make it. I was able to pick a yarn I love working with, and also work from stash. So a sort of win-win-win for finding a project, being able to shop locally, and also use a yarn I know and some yarn that I already have on my stash wall. After I opened up the pattern and was looking at sizing, looking at the differences in the pattern and the sample I saw, I realized it was going to be a bigger project to start because I was going to have to change a little bit of what was going on. So the full story is that the pattern we saw in my local yarn shop was a children's sweater. And a lot of yarn shops will make children's versions or a child's size of a sample so that it doesn't take as much yarn, it doesn't take as much time to work up, and it also doesn't take up as much, and it also doesn't take up as, I can't say it, and it also doesn't take up as much space in the store to display it. So a small sweater or a child's sweater, we're not talking a baby sweater, but a kid's size, maybe for an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old, even a 12-year-old. So it sometimes could be the same sizing as petite adult sizing. Anyway, it's not going to take up as much space to display. It won't take as much yarn, as much time to make. And we really liked the sweater, and we thought it was kind of whimsical, cozy, winter appropriate. Ned was really excited about it, and I thought, yeah, I could make that. And it wouldn't be terribly involved because the colorwork sections are small. They're brief blips of colorwork. You're doing a lot of the sweater just with one color, and it's all knit aside from the ribbing. So when I opened the adult version of the pattern, which is a completely different version, sometimes a pattern is graded for children's sizes through adult sizes. This one, the designers, I think, first designed the children's sweater and then made an adult version. So it's completely separate, and there are some design elements that are different on the adult sweater. So in hindsight, I should have slowed down. I should have found the pattern, looked at people's project examples on Ravelry, looked at any notes first to decide if it's really what I wanted to make, but I didn't. I was swept away. It was probably the night before I was leaving for a trip, and I thought I just wanted to do it on impulse, and I ended up putting the whole thing on hold. I did bring it on my trips. It just sat in my suitcase. I didn't start working on it because I knew I'd have to make some adjustments. So the biggest adjustment, one, is the general sizing and proportions. I want it to fit Ned in a kind of standard way. I don't want the sleeves to be super oversized. I also don't want the sweater to be something with 10 inches of positive ease. I want it to be kind of a standard sizing with 3, 4, or 5 inches of positive ease. And it was a little hard to tell from my own gauge swatching comparison of other projects I've made out of this same yarn with the same recommended needle size, measuring all of those things, putting those measurements into the actual pattern for this sweater, and seeing that it wasn't all going to add up exactly. The other biggest adjustment was the neckline. You'll see between the child's version and the adult version, there's a different detail at the neckline, which I think really affects the outcome, the overall look of the sweater, and I liked the children's version better. I like the amount of color work on the children's version. I like the neckline. I like that it's a little bit different with all of that ribbing up top. So all of that said, I think I figured out the changes I need to make for this to work for Ned. Part of that still includes some guesswork for the amount of short row shaping and the initial foundation. The way the sweater is started, it's a top-down sweater, and so I don't want to start and follow the pattern exactly because I want to make those alterations, but I still want to work it top down. I don't want to reverse everything and go bottom up. So I took Ned's most recent measurements and decided I would do a provisional cast on onto barber cord, onto Stitch Saver. So all of the stitches at the top are live stitches on hold on a cord. When the time comes and I have more of the yoke completed or the whole body completed, I'll have Ned try it on. I'll spread everything out. I might even block it or partially block it, spritz it, steam it, just to get a better idea of how the neck is going to lay, and then pick up those stitches and work my short rows, work as much as I need to give it the right neck opening and the best proportion to actually sit on Ned's body. There was a sweater I made for Ned a couple of years ago now. I used a beautiful kit from Why Not Fibers, from Cat of Why Not Fibers, based in Michigan. Some of the most beautiful yarn and beautiful colors I've ever worked with for a project, but the pattern I used had a sort of awkward shape in the neckline, and it also had either an awkward amount of short row shaping or the way it just fit Ned resulted in a very awkward fit. Either way, it wasn't fitting him super well. We weren't happy with it, so I went in for some of my first sweater surgery. I used a non-superwash wool, similar to what I'm using here. So I was able to, via the advice of some wonderful people here in my YouTube community, trace the neckline I wanted, pick up those stitches, and then reinforce and cut off the existing neckline. And it still fits him in a funny way. I think I need to go back in and see if I can do more adjusting, because something about the overall sizing or the proportions or the amount of short row shaping still don't fit his shoulders the right way. And something like that can be an ongoing issue for any crafter. If you feel like the way you want something to fit, or your own anatomy, your own proportions, dimensions, just don't line up with a designer's standards, then you might constantly find yourself adjusting things. It's very common that people always lengthen or shorten sleeves. It's very common that people will adjust the amount of short row shaping to make something really sit and lay on their bodies in the most comfortable and flattering way. So I know more now than I did a few years ago when I was first making sweaters for Ned. So for this project, I've started it on Stitch Saver, on barber cord, which is something I do with most any top-down sweater, even for myself. I just don't want to risk having a neckline that's way too big, or something that kind of slants and sits at an awkward angle. So I will often skip a little bit past the neck ribbing or the initial increasing and shaping, cast on directly onto a barber cord or another set of needles, keep those stitches on hold, work however much I need, and then when I'm trying things on, towards the very end of the process, I'll decide what I need. The final stitch count, the amount of decreasing, the shaping, all of that. So that's what'll happen here. So we won't know about it for a while until the sweater is done, but I'm glad that this is now in progress. I think it'll be a nice sweater. It's one of my favorite yarns to use. It's really cozy. It wears well. I have so many projects I've made out of Scout. So I don't have any doubts that it will be a cherished, great project, a great outcome. But this is one of those situations where I purchase a pattern, I open it up, and am a little surprised because there are some curveballs. Maybe there's not as much information as I wanted. Maybe it's just formatted in a different way, so you feel like you have to do a little bit of scavenger hunting to find what you need. And in this case, some of the design elements are just different. And if I had done my own slower research, I would have realized that beforehand. But I dove in because I'm impulsive. And that's part of what makes crafting enjoyable, is that you get to make what you want at your own pace, and you can make all of those changes to really make it custom and perfect for you. So that's the story on this sweater. I'm glad to be working on it, but it had a slower start. And the final work in progress we'll talk about today. This is my travel cardigan. It became a dream maybe last winter, with all of my flying back and forth for music jobs that I do. I wanted a cardigan because I like the idea of a cardigan coming on and off easily. I also like the idea of it being open or really draped over to give you different levels of coziness and warmth. And on airplanes, people have their own methods, but a lot of people get cold or things are just kind of sterile and uncomfortable. So it's nice to have something cozy. It's nice to have a long layer on your arms. So along with that, one of the things I really enjoy about crafting and being a crafter who makes garments for themselves, I like wearing something I've made, especially when I travel. Do I like attention? Absolutely. I have a YouTube channel. Here I am. So when I'm wearing something I've made and I'm crafting as I travel, which is my favorite thing to do on a travel day, I love, love, love to get through security, get through the bustle of a busy airport with all the people who might push and shove, all the stress that surrounds you. You might be stressed and panicked for a trip for whatever reason. Once I get to my gate or get to a lounge or get to a little restaurant area, I camp out with my crafting. And it makes me so happy. It makes me grounded. It releases the stress. It's therapeutic. It's not a distraction. It is truly something that works through that stress, that makes me feel good. So on a travel day, when you might be subjected to hours and hours of delays or discomfort, all of the hurry up and wait of boarding a plane, sitting and waiting while things are de-iced or different problems are looked at, I'm a very happy person to be knitting away. So back to the dream. About a year ago with my travels, I was deciding what I should wear for one of my flights, and sometimes I go with a vest because I can have a long sleeve shirt underneath it for arm coverage, but it still breathes. I'm not going to get too hot. I'm not going to be sitting there sweating in a pullover sweater crammed on a plane in case it's really hot. So I think with all of that deliberation, Ned probably said, what about a cardigan? Do you want to wear one of your cardigans? And I was thinking of the cardigans I have, and they're lovely. I only have a few, and they're all a little finicky. One is made out of 100% alpaca, so it's really drapey and fine and almost fragile if it gets caught on anything. It's kind of a nightmare the way it pulls. It's also one of my most delicate and cherished projects, so it's not necessarily something that I want to be wearing on an airplane where it might get damaged or dirty. So I needed something more hard wearing. Some of the other cardigans I have are just a bit oversized. They don't really wear in the way that I want when I'm walking through an airport and carrying bags on and off, all of that. So I thought I should make a travel cardigan. This is a really long, utterly boring story. So thanks for sticking around. It's in front of me. Let's look at it because this is pretty. This will be better than just the talking. I started to look for patterns. I talked to you here on YouTube about it. I talked to my beautiful Patreon crowd about it. People sent me some great ideas for cabled cardigans, cabled pullovers, designers that do beautiful cable work, cable resource books. So I was looking everywhere, really considering what I would like for this travel cardigan. And it's not the last sweater I'll ever make, God willing, but I wanted to be thoughtful. We just talked about a project where I jumped in and I didn't give much thought at the start. This is a project that I meditated on for quite some time so that hopefully I would come to decisions that would make a lot of sense and serve the project well. I wanted a really hard-wearing, resilient yarn. I wanted a beautiful color that speaks to me, and I wanted cables that would be pleasing to the eye, engaging to work, and overall, something that fit the vision I had for a heavily cabled all over texture cardigan. And this is what we have. This is what we came up with. This isn't the final reveal, and we won't see the final reveal for at least a couple more weeks because I have to block the pieces, seam everything together, and then add my button band. But I'm really happy with it. You'll see the pattern here on screen. The yarn is Cori worsted, a DK weight worsted spun yarn from La Bien-Aimée, and the color is Winterfell. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous deep navy. I'm incredibly happy with it. I think it shows the cables well. I was excited to have a dark, dark sweater. And initially I thought I might lose some of the cable impact by working with such a dark yarn, but cables work beautifully, really on any color yarn. There are beautiful sweaters out there, blankets, all sorts of things made out of black yarn with cables and texture. I think it's more about the fiber and the stitch definition, how well it shows all of that texture. And then in a variety of lighting, in a variety of situations, it will show differently. I'm sure there will be times I wear this where some of it is a bit obscured, but in daylight and natural light, obviously here under a couple of sort of filming lights, I think it shows well. So I'm very excited about it. It's pretty lightweight, each panel that is. I'm sure when it's all together, it will feel like a medium to heavyweight solid sweater, but it's not going to be something ridiculous. And that was part of the choice as well. So I'll sit down eventually and tell all sorts of boring stories about this project. It was my first project that I've worked in panels. I've never done a sweater like that before. I'm excited about it. Seams are important. Seams give a lot of structure to garments. It also allowed me to work on this piece by piece during my travels. So it was a lot less to have in my bag every day, on the airplane, in rehearsals, during Christmas, holiday travels. So it worked out for several reasons. So I'm thrilled. I'm excited to start blocking these pieces and then do all of my seaming, my joining, and the final details. So you'll hear about it eventually if you want to hear about it. Speaking of that, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, I would of course be very grateful if you subscribed. I think my statistics are something like 50 to 60% of the people who watch my videos are not subscribed, which really surprised me. I always felt like anybody who chose to spend any amount of time sitting and listening to me talk about projects or crafting along with me or just being part of this community, I assumed it was all a very sort of narrow, small, dense group that were subscribed and watching everything. But when I looked at my statistics at the recommendation of a couple friends, I was surprised to see, okay, I'm actually talking to a sort of ever-changing group of people. So if that's you and you're here for the first time, welcome. If you feel like subscribing, again, I appreciate that. It's wonderful to see this community grow. I think the people who are here, the people who watch these videos, the people who take the time to comment and build each other up, to ask questions, to offer advice, they are the greatest people. It is such a vibrant, wonderful community full of so much knowledge and so much kindness. So thank you. Thank you if that's you. So here she is, Miss Cleveland Heights 2026, Mabel Ruth Vogel. Oh, waking up for the job. Hi, baby. Sometimes people ask me about the cats. They're doing well. I'll put it on my little short list here to bring the cats up for an appearance in the next month or so. Mabel's fallen asleep. It's time for us to say goodnight. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks for being a good, kind person who contributes in a positive way to this community and to our world. It's always a pleasure to get to spend time with you. Let me know what you're working on. Let me know how you're doing in the comments below. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry at MakerMarkKnits, and you can find me over on Patreon. We get together and we Zoom about 3 or 4 times a month, and we have a lot of fun getting to know each other and getting to learn from each other. Brilliant people everywhere you look. So you can find out how to do that in the description box or in the pinned comment below. Thanks so much. As always, happy knitting, happy crocheting, happy crafting to you, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye.